All right, we practiced a little bit of colors, and colors are going to help us to create our piece, our crazy colorful cactus. What you're going to need in order to do this work, you're going to need your crayons still handy and nearby. We'll be using our crayons. You're going to need your glue bottle, your scissors. You're going to need some of your construction paper, but you're only going to need 2 pieces. You're going to pick out 2 pieces of construction paper that are the complementary colors of each other. Okay, so they might not be the exact same shade of blue or green or red or orange or purple or yellow I'm going to hold up, because everybody got something a little different. But you definitely have at least 1 shade of each of these colors in your pack. So what I need you to do is to go in and grab 2 pieces of paper that are the complementary colors of one another out of your folder. So you might grab purple and yellow. You might grab red and green, or you might grab orange or blue. Just 1 pair of those colors. So decide which of those colors you want to use for this piece. Cuz FC Cincinnati is my favorite, I think orange and blue is the way I'm going to go. So I have those set aside for me. You will also need one of your pieces of white project paper. It's really important. I'm going to stress this. You're going to have points taken off this week if you are not using the correct materials. Okay, you have nice project paper so that your paper can withstand the glue and all of the materials we're going to use. You got the right paper for. You should take care of your art and be taking care of your materials, so they are there for you to use, and you've got plenty of what you need. So make sure that you're using project paper and not lined paper. So I have my materials out in front of me. My white project paper. I picked my pair of complementary color construction paper. I have my glue bottle. I have my scissors. I have my color sheet for reference. And I have my crayons. I'm going to take a quick pause here to talk to you about coloring. I want you to notice how I'm really coloring in the entire space. I'm trying to color in all that white space of the paper showing through. I want it to be a nice, solid color. So I do have to go back, and I think you saw me go back and color in my red. I shaded it once the first time, and I saw so much white showing through. I want to see some nice, bright, bold colors that you've taken the time to color in really nice and neat. One good way to help yourself stay in the lines is by tracing the outside of the shape first and then shading it in to color in. because when you trace the outside, you're maybe going a little bit slower. That's the neatest part, and then you can shade it in a little faster as you go. All right, back to speeding it up. Keep working. Do your nicest, neatest job. One last coloring tip I want to show you as I'm working here before you're finished with day one's portion of this week's assignment. And that's about shading. So we'll learn a lot about shading and color mixing and blending once we have our oil pastels, but we can do a lot of that with crayons too. When we shade our crayons one over the other, the crayons do blend together quite a bit. Now I don't want to press super hard to do this. It's about how you apply your pressure. Some heavy and some light, and back and forth until you start to get this kind of blended effect. That can allow for it to look like it has shadows, and shadows help us to think that something has some depth to it, that it's three-dimensional. So adding a little shading in my colors, and my third grade friends, I'd like to see you try to do this. First and second grade friends, this is an option, but my third grade friends, I want to see you overlap some of the colors that are next to each other in the color wheel. So you can see I'm using blue and purple, blue and green, red and orange, orange and yellow. Those are the colors that are going to be successful in doing this, or the colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So as I'm coloring them in, by adding the color that's next to it in one of the spots, I can kind of give some nice blending color to my work. And that'll help add it's really taking my artwork to that next level. All right, I want you to continue working on your own to color your cactus all the way in. Tomorrow you're going to bring your cactus back, and then we'll get into what that glue and construction paper and our scissors are for as we add a collage component to our crazy, colorful cactus. See you tomorrow. All right, time for our next section to be working on our crazy, colorful pattern cactus. Mine is fully colored in. You can see there's not like white spaces sticking through here. I really took my time to fully color it in. I did take some time too to add that neighboring color on the color wheel. Let's call it an analogous color, and we'll talk more about those soon. But I use that analogous color, that neighboring color on the color wheel, to add some depth to my colors by adding some value changes and some shading. Third grade friends, I want to see that happen. Okay, I want somewhere in here you to show me some shading by layering over two colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. All right, So I have one more thing to add to this. We're going to turn this into a little bit of a collage by adding an extra step to this. Now, a collage comes from a French word that means to glue. Makes a lot of sense. We need glue to do it. Collage is when we take other materials and we kind of glue them all and assemble them together to create a collage. Collage is both a verb and a noun depending on how you use it. It's called collage when we're actually cutting and gluing and putting it together, but the final piece of artwork is also called a collage. So when we're in the act of doing it, that's a verb. When it's all finished and it's the final piece, then it's a noun. Collage, both times. Remember, we talked about those complementary colors, the colors across each other from the color wheel, like orange and blue, red and green, yellow and purple. The reason we use complementary colors together is they make each other stand out. Think of all the times you have seen red and blue red and green used together. Think about Christmas. Think about nature, a red rose, and how much it stands out behind the green leaves behind it. So when we use complementary colors together, it grabs our attention. It makes them stand out. You need to pick 2 of your construction pieces of paper in complementary colors. I'm using orange and blue. We're not going to use all of them, just a little bit of them. Before we can get on to how we're going to use them, we have to talk about our scissors. Scissor safety is a huge deal, especially now that you're at home. 1, your art supply should be somewhere safe, because I know that there's little siblings around a lot of our houses, and it would be awful if something that can be sharp like this was not being used correctly. So, some rules about using our scissors. Number 1, when our scissors are not being used, they are resting. That means they're closed. It also means that they're sitting somewhere safe, so usually towards the top of your desk or your table. Okay? Your scissors should not ever just be sitting in your hand like this while you're doing something else. They're closed. They're sitting somewhere safe off to the side until you're ready to use them next. Next, how do we hold our scissors safely? Most of us should remember from getting our lesson in art class last year that when we carry our scissors, they're closed, remember, because we're not cutting, so they're resting, and we wrap our hands around and we hold them like this. Okay? That totally covers the tip. So if I were walking across the room holding these and I tripped and fell, I couldn't accidentally stab myself with my scissors. Okay? I'm going to hold and protect myself like this. It's also the same if I were to hand my scissors to my friends. I would point the handle towards them, and then I would open up my hand so they could pick them up by the handle, not point them at my friends like this. That's not safe. I offer, when I'm handing a friend scissors, or if my mom asks me for my scissors, I'm going to hand them to her like this, and then she can take them by the handle safely. Okay? Those are some important scissor rules. What do you use scissors on? This is probably the most important thing. Scissors cut your paper and your paper only. Okay? They do not cut your hair. They do not cut your clothes. They don't cut your pet's hair or sister's hair. Right? They are only allowed to cut paper. That's true in the art room. It's true at your home. It's true at your daycare. Wherever it is you're using scissors, scissors cut paper only. Okay, I don't want to get messages that you are not being safe with your scissors. That would be an awful message to get. So I'm going to keep them closed when I'm not using them. I'm going to set them somewhere safe. I'm going to carry them or hand them to someone safely. And I'm only ever cutting paper with my scissors. You have to agree to those 3 things to use your scissors. Next, we have to talk about how we cut. There's some important rules to cut, and also important rules to help you to cut better. Now, when we're cutting today, we're just going to be cutting a couple shapes out of our paper, and we're not even going to be tracing and cutting on any lines. It's going to be a little random how we're cutting today. So it's a less important lesson, but there's still some things we should talk about because this is your scissor introductory lesson. So first, your scissors have 2 holes. The small hole is for your thumb. The big hole is for the rest of your fingers. So I put my hand in my scissors like this. My fingers are cramped because these are kids' scissors. Your hand should fit in there just fine. Fine. Now, when you're cutting, your thumb is on top. The rest of your fingers are on the bottom. Now, when you cut, you are lifting your thumb. Your thumb does most all the work. Let's see if I can do it. My left hand just to show you that. There we go. This is my thumb is lifting. The rest of my fingers are pretty much staying still. They are there to help steady them and guide them, while this does the work. Okay, not using them. They're closed. Remember. All right, so holding them is important. How to cut is important. This hand is important. This is my non-writing hand. And usually this hand gets to be pretty lazy in art class or the rest of classes. But when I'm cutting, this hand has an important job to do. This is my helper hand, and it does most of the work when I'm cutting. Okay, my cutting hand just sits here, and it's going to stay in the same spot, and my thumb is just going to lift up and down. If I was cutting a circle, they would still stay like this. The helper hand is going to turn the paper while I cut. So it doesn't matter if I'm cutting a star, a circle, a square, a triangle. Your scissors always point away from you and stay in the same spot. It's really awkward to try to move and cut like this. We're not going to get good cutting, and we shouldn't cut like that. It's not safe. This hand is going to turn and cut. That's going to work. Your helper hand also holds the paper steady for you. So most of the work is the thumb, and you have the fingers here steadying it. You have this hand steadying it. When we all work together, we're going to get really good at cutting. We're going to do a really good job. Now, let's talk about what we're going to cut out of here. We're going to end up cutting some triangles, because what are we missing on our cactus? We're missing the spikes. We're going to make this into a collage by adding the spikes to our cactus. We're going to add spikes of complementary colors to our cactus. We're going to glue our spikes around the edges of our little different cactus shapes. Now, I don't need huge spikes, and my spikes are going to be a triangle shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my paper here, and I'm just going to cut 2 strips. These are like 1/2-inch strips. So think about a strip that for you is probably as wide as your thumb. Okay? So I have 2 strips of orange paper. All right? I'm going to do the same with my blue. I don't want to cut. Look at all this paper I still have. This is going to go right back in my folder. I still have a lot of art I can make with this paper, and I need to save it because we will make more collages this quarter. So that goes back into my folder to save it. And I'm going to cut 2 more strips. So really, my hand has not moved. It was my helper hand that's really pulling the paper down while my thumb goes up and down, up and down, up and down. My helper hand was pulling the paper through. It did most of the moving. And this stayed still, just my thumb up and down, up and down. Only cut paper. Now, set these off to the side. I'm finished with them for a second. So I've closed them and I've set them somewhere safe. That's towards the top of my table. I wouldn't want them somewhere on the sides where I might bump them with my elbow. With these strips, we're going to cut them into some triangles. I'm going to show you what I think is the best and easiest way to do that. So I'm going to switch my camera to show you. I cannot tell you. I'm just so excited looking at these colors, paper and the colors all over my cactus here. I cannot wait to see how this final thing is going to turn out. I have my glue with me. That's going to be really important. And then I have my strips of paper. So for my strips of paper, I'm going to turn these into triangles. And I'm going to do that just by cutting back and forth. So straight line, diagonal line, straight line, diagonal line. Now, these don't need to be uniform or the same. They can be different. And I have 2 strips here. Now that I'm cutting it, I'm wondering, I might only need 1 strip. In which case, I'll probably just put that extra strip back into my folder. That might come in handy. Okay, I've almost cut this whole end, and so I think I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to cut the full strip here. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut 1 strip of my orange for my complementary color. I think these are really going to make the spike parts stand out in my piece. So look, my last piece is a square. Did you know if you just cut a square right through the middle? 2 triangles. All right, I am going to set 2 of these strips off to the side. Just 1 of the orange, but I'm going to keep these in a pile because I'm going to want to make a pattern with my color triangles. So I'm going to keep them separate because I just feel like when I'm more organized, my work is way easier. I get less frustrated when I have a nice organized workspace. It makes cleaning up easier. And I won't have like a huge pile of messy triangles. I'll be able to just pick out a blue one, pick out an orange one from their separate little piles. I think it'll help me to work cleanly. I need some music on. All right, almost done. Some long, super spikies. Okay, these are finished, off to the side, closed and safe. All right, I have orange and blue piles. Now, not quite everywhere am I going to want to put spikes, but I'm going to get them around the bulk of my items. They can also overlap. Like I just have a small gap in between this and this. So maybe here I have spikes that go this way, and on this side they might come back this way, or I might decide that the ones this way are going to get so covered up that I'm just going to do them the opposite way. Okay, so there's a little artistic license there, right? That's your artist choice, but I think these are going to look so cool when we start to arrange them around our piece. I always think that it's a really good idea. Oh, this is one of those really tall ones. Maybe it'll look cool here. To lay it out first and decide where you want them to go, how you want them to look. When you start gluing, like gluing's for keeps, man. So I want to see you add some spikes to a good majority of your space here. Lay them out. Now, you can decide how you're going to play them around. I like the alternating, but I could also go like 2 blue, 2 orange. I'd love to see a pattern of some kind, but you can determine that pattern. When it comes time to gluing them down, you really are just going to want to open your glue and put a tiny little dot of glue. It will probably end up getting on your fingers. That's okay. I usually have a piece of scrap paper nearby and I can kind of wipe it off. It's going to get on my fingers, and if I try to wash my hands after every time I get a little glue on them, I am just going to make a mess. Now, it was important that I colored first, because once glue gets on the paper, even if it dries or wipes off, I'm not going to be able to add any more crayon to that. So it was important that I did that first. All right, it's coming together. So you can see here where, since this part is my really big one, I'm going to go all the way around. So they're going to overlap on the top of these two. I'm probably still going to need to put some here. But if I decide that they're on top of this one, then this one will need to go down first. I want you to think about which are the ones that are closest to you. How are you going to fit your spikes around them? And I want to see spikes around most of your big ones, okay? And then if you want to stick a little crazy spiky one coming off one or two of your little ones, that might be fun too. You could even cut these into smaller pieces if you felt super ambitious. I'm going to keep working and I'll show you my final piece when it's all finished. Get to cutting and gluing and get yours laid out. All right, friends, here's my final piece. My final piece is now ready to take a picture and upload it to Artsonia. Remember, the specific link for uploading your piece is in the week 3 folder, the Crazy Colorful Cactus folder in Schoology, and it'll always be the last file at the bottom of all of the reference links that are in that folder. If you are having problems uploading your artwork, please message me if you need to make arrangements to submit it another way. I am happy for you to go ahead and take a picture and email it to me. You can also take a picture and link it, add the file to a message in Schoology. And you can also make arrangements to drop it off at school when you do a folder exchange with your classroom teacher. If you're going to do it that way, then you're probably not going to get it to me this Friday. I don't think there's pickup this Friday. I think there's pickup next Friday. So I'd just like to know that you have finished it and that's how you're going to choose to submit it. So that way I don't put a 0 in your grade book. I hope you had really fun making this. We are going to be doing more collages next week. We're going to continue to practice our cutting skills and practice our gluing skills as we make a new piece of art next week. So I'm really excited to teach you all about next week's artist, Carrie Ambrosino, as we create a new piece. Bye.